Okay, wonderful. So good morning again. I have started the recording. So we are conducting our direct certification and free and reduced meal training for the 23-24 school year. In addition to that, again, we will leave time for Q&A as we navigate through this training. So we are going to jump right in. Okay, so before we get started with today's training, I just want folks to take a moment to just say hello to everyone in the chat. I'm going to start just so that we know who is joining us today and let us know what school you're coming from. Awesome. Hey, Elizabeth. We also have some of our folks from OSCE joining us. Yes, Ed is one of our program specialists here at OSCE. So I am going to just continue moving on. But feel free to just continue to say hello to everyone in the chat.
Eagle Wing, that one room is a big conference table. That's gone to.
Okay. All right, so again, today we're going to be talking about direct certification and farm, the free and reduced meal applications. So for direct certification, that allows the local education agencies or LEA to certify children so that they are able to receive free meals in the district. And that eliminates the need for them to have to fill out a free and reduced meal application. And depending on your organization, you will have access to the direct certification, the list of students that are directly certified for your organization. So as you can see here, we have all of our information coming from the Department of Human Services, and that information is downloaded to us for click. And that information that is shared with us shares with us information for students who are eligible because their family is participating either in TANF or SNAP. And so for DC public schools and for public charter schools, you'd access your information from CLIC. And then for our private schools, they would access their information from QuickBase. In addition to students being eligible for free meals as a result of participating in TANF or SNAP, we also have the opportunity to identify students who are able to receive free meals based on being identified as as homeless or a foster child, and that information is also available in the CLIC website. So, what are some of the benefits for utilizing direct certification for your organization and for our students in the district? So, one of the biggest benefits is that families do not need to complete a paper meal application. It can be really challenging to get all of our applications back from all of our families, but we do have a portion of our students that are listed on the direct certification list that do not need to turn in a paper meal application. It also decreases the number of applications that you have to process. So again, just alleviating the administrative burden for students that are directly certified can just basically literally add time back to your schedule. It also decreases the errors, the chance for errors for applications. So one of the reasons that we are here today is because we did have some changes in applications, and that resulted in more than 40% or more of your applications being changed when you conducted the verification process. If you have students that are directly certified, you do not need to have to worry about processing the application, so that's one of the benefits. In addition to that, students that are eligible later on in the school year are able to be added because one of the requirements for direct certification is that you run it a couple of times a year. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But a student may come into the school year, maybe being a paid status, and you may run the direct certification list again during the course of the year. And as they appear on the direct certification list, they're able to have their eligibility changed. And last but not least, once the student is direct certified, they are free for the entire school year. So there is no need for a family to self-report any information in terms of a change in status of income. They are eligible to receive meals at the free rate for the entire school year. So how do you get information for who is on your direct certification list? So again, Click takes all of the information from the School Food Authority and compares it to data that we have at DHS. And again, identifying students who are participating in SNAP or TANF. That information is kept throughout the school year on the following databases. So for DCPS, DCPS uses Aspen to identify their students that are participating in SNAP and TANF. Public charter schools keep their information on their individual student information system. And last but not least, our private schools must update their student enrollment annually in the Click-based system. So direct certification is available through Click, and in order to access Click, you must have an active SLED account. So some of you who have been around for some years have recognized SLED, and that was our go-to database to identify direct certified students. So that has since been changed to Click, and in order to access Click, you still will need to have had an active SLED account. And if you do not have an active SLED account, or if maybe you're new to your organization, be sure to reach out to your program specialist so that they are able to ensure that you have access to SLED, which ultimately will give you access to Click. So, and we're going to show these screenshots as we move forward. But just to give you an idea of how to access a direct certification list, you will first access the Click website, and this presentation will be shared, so you will have a direct link to that. We always recommend that you bookmark it so that you can have access to it throughout the course of the year. Once you log in through the Click website, you will select direct certification, you'll select open, and then you will select the year that you would like to get the direct certification information for. Once you get on that page, you will need to scroll down to the direct certification schools roster and make sure that your school is being displayed. And once you have your school information, it could be beneficial for you to just download the Excel spreadsheet for your organization. And as we mentioned earlier, there is a requirement that you download your direct certification information 3 times per year. And so it's a good way to make sure that you're comparing your list to see if there are any new students on the list by downloading that list of direct certified students onto an Excel spreadsheet. So now we'll show you what it looks like, show you a couple of screenshots just based on some of the steps that we just talked about. So when you first log into Click, you will see, and just a little bit of a side note, this is from the program specialist perspective. So your view may not look as ours does on these particular slides. But when you log in, you will see a square for you to log into direct certification. So you want to select the direct certification, not that module that you see there. Once you select that direct certification module, you will see that button open, and that will allow you to gain access to the direct certification database. And once you get that, after you complete that step, this is again making sure that you are able to select the year that is applicable for you. There may or may not be a need for you to access previous years, but for the purposes of our training today, you will be accessing the current school year. Once you scroll down to the direct certification schools roster, you'll be able to see the information listed on the screen once you log in. But what you want to do is download it so that you're able to access the information for future references. So you will see on the direct certification school rosters in the first picture, to the right, you will see the 3 little dots that will let you know that there are some menu options. Once you select those 3 dots, the second picture is what you will see. So you're able to either look at the school's roster either in a full screen, you're either able to share it, you can snapshot the library, or you're able to download it. And once you download it, you will be downloading it as an Excel spreadsheet. And so for our private schools, it's available through QuickBase. And so again, as with SLED, you want to make sure that you have a QuickBase account so that you're able to access the information. Again, if you do not have access to QuickBase, you want to make sure that you reach out to your program specialist so that we can make sure that you have access to the private school data application. And again, we'll just talk through some of these steps, but we'll show you what they actually look like when they're in action. So once you log into QuickBase, you are able to go to the private school data collection dashboard. Once again, you will be selecting the year that you'd like to get information for, and make sure that your school name is showing, and then you want to select the school year for the direct certification applicable to the school year that you're looking to access. So here is a picture of what QuickBase looks like. Again, this is from the program specialist as we were creating the training. So yours may look a little bit different when you log into the system. So you want to, once you log into the system, you will get the default for the private school data collection, and you will be able to see your school listed here. And so as you can see here, the enrollment status report automatically just kind of lists the number of students that you have enrolled and all of the things of that nature. So again, we have a list of all of the schools, but you want to make sure that your school is the one that's showing in this particular picture. So as I mentioned earlier, the direct certification process must be conducted 3 times per year. The first time that you pull it will be at or around the beginning of the school year. The second time that you will pull it will be 3 months after that. And then the third one will be 6 months after your initial effort. So if you pull it on September 1st, you want to make sure that you're pulling it again by at least November or December. And then you want to make sure that you're pulling it no later than March. And some of the best practices associated with that is to pull a direct certification list routinely to see if students become eligible during the course of the school year. Now, because you do have the requirement to pull it for 3 times per year, that does not mean that you're not able to pull it more than that. You're able to pull that direct certification list as often as you need to, or as often as your organization would like to. But again, the requirement is that you pull it no less than 3 times per year. And as I mentioned earlier, you are able to download the copy of the direct certification list and you're able to save it. And we recommend that you save it with the identification of the day that you pulled it. So once again, students that are on the direct certification list are considered eligible for free meals and they do not have to file an application at your school. Students that are not on a direct certification list are required to submit a farm application to identify their meal eligibility. If the school does receive an application for a student that has a TANF or a SNAP number on it, but they don't appear on the direct certification list, they would be what we consider categorically eligible for free meals. So you may have students who don't appear on the direct certification list, but their family is eligible and are receiving TANF or SNAP benefits. Okay. So I am going to pause there to see if there are any questions for the direct certification portion of our program before we move on to the farm application portion of our program.
Ryan had a question in the chat. If a family knows they are full pay, are they expected to complete the application?
So that's a really great question. And they don't need to. We do encourage families to complete the applications. And I will say, on a side note, I was one of those bad moms that I knew my children were going to be identified as paid students and I didn't fill out the applications. But since I've joined OSCE, I recognize the importance of families completing farm applications. So while they don't have to, we do encourage them to. And I think encouraging families to complete a farm application, even if they feel that they're going to be paid, is the opportunity to engage them, to let them know that if for some reason their financial status changes, they're able to come back to the school and let them know so that they may be eligible for reduced meals or for free meals. So again, while they're not required to, it's the best practice to try to engage them and let them know about the opportunity to either change to submit a farm application so that we have it on file, but then also the potential exists for the eligibility status to change in the event their financial status changes. So good question.
So, no, I appreciate the answer. And that's what I always thought. But since we're here and you kind of mentioned this, because we had to change some applications, and I heard you kind of mention the fewer applications you process, the fewer mistakes you make,
Mm-hmm.
which makes sense to me. I'm just wondering, I totally understand the point about engaging families, but I'm just wondering, like, should we really not be? But I mean, I heard you say it's best practice, but I also heard you say maybe we shouldn't try, we should try to have fewer applications. So just trying to figure out the right balance of all this, because I think it's makes sense to ask for fewer applications because you're going to get fewer mistakes. And when you're processing 200-300 applications and like the vast majority of them are full pay, I don't know, like it's a burden on LEAs. Like what kind of makes sense?
Absolutely. So
Good.
I definitely recognize that families may not want to fill it out because they're paid. And I think what's also interesting is when we conduct administrative reviews, we do review the farm applications where the families are paid. So while you don't have, while you want to make sure that you're engaging families so that they understand the process, because again, a family situation may change and we want them to not have to engage in the process for the first time if we can avoid that. So we can certainly make families aware of that. I know a lot of SFAs do it via the handbook, maybe on their website, and certainly on back to school night. So by all means, you can inform them, but you can't force them. But it is always a good exercise to at least have some paid applications because again, it really is a great opportunity to just understand how to process farm applications and what that looks like when you have families that are paid. And again, continuing that engagement to let them know if their status changes, they can receive reduced benefits or free benefits. So there's kind of that gamble,
Thank
not
you.
that gamble, but it's kind of that mix for your organization, just saying, hey, we know we're going to let them know about it. We're not going to harass them, but we're certainly going to make sure that they're informed. And I see Aisha has her hand up.
Hi, Lizette. In regard to the question that was just asked, is this a form where I can share what we have started to do at our school?
Absolutely. This is a great opportunity to share your best practices, certainly.
So we've created a refusal of benefits form. So families are presented with all of those options. They can complete the farm application, but we have found that some families don't want to complete the form. So we have a refusal form that families can complete. It allows us to track those families, not necessarily track them, but when we once we have that on file, we stop communicating with families because they've indicated to us that they're not going to complete the farm application. They're not interested in the benefit. So our efforts of trying to, of future outreach is not directed to those families.
Thank you for sharing that, Aisha. And it looks like we also have that taking place at Mundo Verde. So yes, having an opt-out form, just letting families know, hey, we know we need to do this, we're not going to do this, and thank you. So that's a really great practice. Thank you for sharing that, Aisha. Okay, so if there are no other questions for direct certification, I am going to turn it over to Kendra, who will go over the information about free and reduced meal applications.
Thank you, Lizette, and good afternoon or good morning, everyone. So I'm Kendra Wash. I am the program specialist here at OSSI, and I will be going over the farm applications section of this presentation. Okay. So first thing we have here is actually the farm application, which stands for free and reduced meals application, free and reduced price meals applications. So this is the front of the form. This is actually the most recently updated version. So USDA actually just did release an updated prototype application form, which is available currently for everyone to use. Us at OSSI did actually go ahead and post this on our website. So it is available for download, and it actually has been translated as well. So there are different translations. So we have it available in English and also in 6 other languages. So we're going to be going through all of the steps here in the coming up slides, but I just wanted to kind of just highlight here the most recently updated form. And then also, uh, I did notice that on the prototype, it does not have a section to indicate the school year at the top. So that is something that you can add for your school division or your SFA rather. So, these templates are customizable and you can add information as you see fit for your SFA to avoid any confusion. So you can definitely add the school year at the top of the prototype template form here. Okay, so this is the top of this is the front page of the form, as I mentioned. So it goes basically from step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and we'll go through each of these sections. Okay. So I'm going to go to the next one here, and this actually shows the back of the prototype form. So on the back, and it looks like a lot of information, but once you have it available and printed, or if you submit it or transmit it digitally or electronically, then it is a little bit easier to see. But yeah, so here we also has sources and examples of income, and then an optional section which is asking for racial and ethnic data. And then the bottom section is for school use only. So the parents and households do not fill out that bottom section. That bottom section is for the SFAs to fill out. Okay. So next thing here is the income eligibility guidelines. So we actually do have this available, which is information that is released on an annual basis that goes with each corresponding school year. And so this one here is effective from July 1, 2023 to June 30th, 2024. So this would be for the upcoming school year. So these are going to be the income eligibility guidelines, and you'll essentially use this chart in conjunction with the information that is inserted into the farm application in order to be able to determine whether the children are going to be eligible for free or reduced price meals. So if you're unfamiliar, this column on the left side here is the household size. So it goes from 1 to 8, and then you can also add additional family members if needed. And then there it basically shows the federal poverty guideline in the annual list there. And then it has columns for reduced price meals, and then also, which is 185% of the below the federal poverty guideline. And then for free meals, it would be 130% of the federal poverty guideline. And we'll go through the exact steps of how to do that. But pretty much you'll compare the income that is listed on the farm application to this income eligibility guideline here. And if it falls under the number that is listed based on the household size, then that means that the children in that household are either eligible for reduced meals if they fall under the number that is here based on the frequency indicated, or free. Okay, so now we're going to kind of go through each of the steps here. So how do you determine eligibility on farm applications? So the first thing that you want to do is ensure that the application is filled out completely and is signed by a household member. So now for step 2, you're going to want to see if they have a case number. So as Lizette had mentioned earlier, they could have a SNAP case number or a TANF case number. So if they have either one of those available, then you would just basically skip to step 3, and then you would ensure that step 4 is completed. And step 4 is just basically the name of the adult, the signature, the date, address, and contact information, which is optional. Okay. And then basically, if they do have a case number, then all the students that are listed on the application are considered categorically eligible. And so you would proceed to the back of the application and you'll select in that area, which is for school use only, you will select categorically eligible as the eligibility type. And then you'll sign your name in the determining official's signature box and you'll date. Now, if step 2 is blank, meaning that they do not have a case number, then you'll continue on to step 3 on the application. Okay, so continuing on with determining eligibility. If a household reports income sources at more than one frequency, then you'll basically want to convert it to annual income. And so, in order to convert to annual income, if they provide a weekly income frequency, then you'll multiply it by 52 because it's 52 weeks in a year. If they provide every 2 weeks, you'll multiply it by 26. If it's twice a month, you'll multiply it by 24. And then if it's monthly, you'll multiply it by 12. So basically, once you have your annual income, then you'll compare that income or the sum of the incomes. If it's all the same frequency type, you do not have to annualize it. So you would compare that, as I mentioned earlier, to the published income eligibility guidelines for the appropriate frequency and household size in order to make the eligibility determination. Okay, so then you're going to report the income findings at the bottom of page 2, which is back in that for school use only section. And you'll select the income frequency and report the household size. Okay, and then using the determination that was made, you'll fill in the proper circle in the eligibility box. So that would be either free, reduced, or paid. Um, or actually on the application, it says free, reduced, or denied, which would be paid. All right, then you're going to sign your name in the determining official's signature box and you'll put the date. And then you'll have a confirming official shall review, sign, and date when a second review of applications is required and for verification. So if you have received notice that you are required to do second review of applications, then you'll have to have a confirming official review, sign, and date basically upon the first review uh, of this application. And then, of course, when you're doing verification, when it comes time for verification season, then the confirming official is meant to basically determine um, that the original application was either approved or denied correctly before it actually is verified. So best practice for that would be to do a second review of applications at all times, even though it's not required at all times, just because it's better to have like a second set of eyes on an application because it's very easy to miss certain things or overlook certain things because it is a lot of information and the very technical is math involved, and so it is possible that someone could be miscategorized because maybe a number is missed here or there, or you don't include all the income types or things of that nature. So we do recommend just having a second review of applications at all times. All right, so critical information. Now, eligibility determinations are valid for the entire school year, regardless of how the eligibility is determined. So No matter what, anytime that you establish an eligibility type for students, then they would remain that type for the entire school year. So unless there is something else that happens that where they, can change their eligibility type, let's say they fill out another application, then their eligibility is year long. So SFAs must carry over the eligibility status from the previous school year for up to 30 operating days or until a new eligibility determination is made, whichever comes first. And that is going to be so basically whatever their status is now. Once you start the new school year for the first 30 operating days, so let's say they are free right now, they'll remain free for the next 30 operating days of the new school year until a new determination is made. Let's say they complete a new application or they're found on like the direct certification list. Okay, farm applications cannot be completed and signed before July 1 of the effective school year. So annually, income eligibility guidelines are effective from July 1 to June 30th, as I mentioned earlier, of the current school year. So basically, you'll just want to make sure that the farm application is coinciding with the annual income eligibility guideline, and you're not actually distributing applications prior to the start of the new school year. Okay, and then third thing we have here, sponsors that make changes to farm applications, a frequently asked questions document, or use a different application format every year, must submit applications and documents to OSCE for approval every year. So if you are making changes to your application, like so if you're making changes to the templates, you'll definitely want to make sure that you submit it to us for review in order to make sure that all the required information is on there. Okay, and then a little more details in regards to the carryover policy for the school meal program. So we have a chart here, basically talks about the different carryovers, if it's within an LEA or local educational authority or between LEAs. So basically, if it's standard counting and claiming, so if a student is going from a standard accounting and claiming school to a standard counting and claiming school, then carryover is mandatory. And whether the child is continuing in the same school or will attend a different school within the LEA, the new school must carry over the child's eligibility status for up to 30 operating days or until a new eligibility determination is made, whichever comes first. Um, and that is going to be if it's within the same LEA. If it is between LEAs, meaning they're going from one LEA to a different LEA, then receiving schools are encouraged to use the former LEA's eligibility determination for up to 30 operating days or until a new eligibility determination is made, whichever comes first. So the new school may accept the former school's determination without incurring the liability for the accuracy of the determination. So essentially, you can just take their determination at face value. You don't have to like recheck it to make sure that it is accurate. Now, if it's from a provision school, so a school that's operating, let's say, Provision 2 or CEP, the Community Eligibility Provision, and it's going to a standard accounting and claiming school, OSCE does permit children moving within an LEA to receive free meals for up to 30 operating days or until a new eligibility determination is made, whichever comes first, if they're within the same LEA. If it's between LEAs, then OSCE permits children moving between LEAs to receive free meals for up to 30 operating days or until a new eligibility determination is made, whichever comes first. Okay, and then similarly here, there's a transfer policy for the school meal programs. So if students are transferring, then we want to make sure that they're, still receiving their benefits as well. So if transferring from a standard counting and claiming school to a standard counting and claiming school within the same LEA, eligibility status must transfer with the child when a child moves to a new school within an LEA. And then if they're going between LEAs, receiving schools are encouraged, but not required to accept the eligibility determination from the child's former district. The receiving school may accept the eligibility determination without incurring liability, again, for the accuracy of the determination. And then if they're going from a provision school to a standard counting and claiming school, and they're within an LEA, then children transferring from a provision school must receive free meals for up to 10 days or until a new eligibility determination status is made. So whichever comes first. OSSI does permit children transferring from provision schools to receive free meals for up to 30 days. So they have to get it for at least 10 days unless a new determination is made, but we actually do allow for up to 30 days. And free meals served under these circumstances may be claimed at the federal free rate. And then if they are transferring between LEAs from a provision school to a standard counting and claiming school, and then schools must provide children transferring for up to 10 operating days, excuse me, or until a new eligibility determination is made, whichever comes first. And OSSI does permit transfer students to receive free meals for up to 30 days. And free meals served under these circumstances may be claimed at the free federal rate as well. Okay, so here we have a couple of resources. These are actually resources for the households or for the parents. And once you receive the slideshow here, as Lisette stated earlier, this will be sent out to everybody. So you can go ahead and click on each of these links. So this is a link to the OSSI website, which is our section that has all of the farm and direct certification related information. Then we also have a frequently asked questions letter for parents. So that'll be a very helpful resource, excuse me, for any questions that are asked frequently. And also we have a how to fill out the farm application, kind of step-by-step instructions for the parents or households, because we know this form can be a little tricky. Next, we have a farm application instructions as well. So that's basically kind of just walking them by step, instructions on how to fill out the farm application. Then also we have a farm application fact sheet and the eligibility manual for school meals, which is a great resource to just kind of look up different scenarios. Let's say if they had questions about, what is a source of income, or maybe they had questions about, who would be counted in their household. That would be a great resource in order to look up that information. Okay, so I'm actually going to stop here and see if we have any questions on the farm applications.
There's a few questions in there's one question in the chat from Monique. She had a couple of different questions in there. And one is the farm application ready to send out to the students for next school year?
Yes, so it is ready to send out. As I mentioned earlier, it is available on the OSSI website. So it is available, but remember, you can't send it out before before the start of the new school year. So you would not send it out prior to July 1. So you can send it out after July 1 or maybe even closer to the beginning of the school year.
The second part of the question is, as you go through the form, can you also think about adult education schools and where the adult students' information would go?
Okay. When you say adult education schools, do you mean like, I guess adults who are in adult education programs who are living in the same household as children who are in like pre-K to 12 schools?
So our school is from 16 to 30-year-olds. We have a few students that are between 16 and 18, but most of the students are 18 and above. And so on the form, at the top part of the form where it says like the student's information, the grade and such, and then the bottom part has the information for the parents and everybody else in the household. the way that we've been doing the form is that if they are 16 to 18, below 18, then we would put their information, the actual student's information, in the top part of the form, and then put their parents' information on the bottom part of the form. If for all of our adults, we would put for the adults, do we put the adult students' information at the top part of the form and then the other people in the household at the bottom part?
Okay, that's a great question. So, according to the application, it says list all children, infants, and students up to and including grade 12 in step 1. So you're just going to include, as you've been doing, the children up to grade 12 in the top part, and then all of the other adults you would include in step 3 in household members.
Okay, so for us, we are, I guess, considered 9th through 12th in a way. So for adult education, the language doesn't really match because we are considered 9 through 12 in a way. So 18 and over, do those students still go in the actual student? Do their names go at the top, or do we put them down by the whole household information?
So if they're above 18, are they still in grade 12?
Yeah, so ours, it's kind of a 9 through 12 type thing because the students are getting their GED. So it's kind of equivalent to a 9 through 12 school.
Okay.
So all of our students, whether they're 16 or 30, they all would go through that 9 to 12 type thing, wherever they are along the GED tracking.
So Monique, we can certainly look at next step because we also have LAYC, which also kind of follows the same thing.
Yeah.
I know in the application, the NSLP application in Orchard, you have the opportunity to list them as ungraded. Not really certain how that would play itself out if the ungraded can be listed on the form application, but I'm thinking that that may be the way to go because they are still students in the organization,
Yeah.
but they don't necessarily have that grade 12,
Right.
so they would
Right.
be listed as ungraded. What I will add is that because they are the student, the application will be associated with that student.
Yeah.
And if the student does have income, they do need to come down below and be
Yes.
listed as having income as well, just in case
Yeah.
they have income, and in addition to any other family members that have income in the family.
Yeah.
But we will look into that and confirm that you want to put ungraded in that first part of the application, because that's where the application is going to be identifying the student name.
Okay. Yes. Thanks.
My pleasure.
Yes,
And
thank
Monique,
you,
do you want me
Lizette.
to read the last part, or you want to take your last part of your question?
Oh, so then on the form where some of our students will put that they are migrants or homeless and they are not on the DC list, where do they become categorically eligible?
Yes, they would be considered categorically eligible. Exactly. So they wouldn't have a case number, but in step 1, and I'll actually go back to the application so you can see it. Okay, so in step 1 over here, it has a column for either foster, migrant, runaway, or homeless. So if you check any of those boxes, then you basically, then those students actually would be considered categorically eligible, based on those boxes, either of those boxes being checked.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then Ryan had his hand raised. Ryan had a question.
Hey, so my question, I understand the part about being categorically eligible. I just want to be clear. So if a parent puts a number, any number in that box that basically asks for their TANF number or their SNAP number, sorry, then we just have to kind of blindly accept it as true. I understand that part, but when it comes to then the verification later, which is kind of why we're here, what do we do about that? Do we have to then verify that it is true? Is there any part of that, or is it just kind of the law to accept any number as true, even though it may not be?
Okay, that's a great question. So typically you would just accept the information that is submitted on a farm application at face value. I would say you would want to take a look and just make sure that it looks like it is in a format um, that is familiar with your area. So if it's like something that you're used to seeing in the DC area, um, you know, let's say if you know that all case numbers don't have, let's say, letters or something like that, and then you see something with the letters, then you may, that may be questionable. But for the most part, you'll just accept it at face value. And then let's say the application were to be selected for verification, then we do ask for documentation to verify um, the categorical eligibility status. So I can actually, let's see. I can actually pull up what is the information that we would ask for with that. So I'll just take a look here. Give me one moment.
And while Kendra is looking at that, I know we have some SFAs that process applications electronically. And so we would just encourage folks to work with their software developers to help identify if a SNAP or TANF number fits the format. I know I've been on the phone with some of you guys and trying to verify that. But to Kendra's point, just making sure that the number that you see on the application follows that format for the SNAP or TANF number.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Okay, so taking a look at the template letter here that you would typically send out when a household is selected for verification. So if it's SNAP or TANF, we would ask for a certification notice that shows the date of certification, or a letter from the SNAP or TANF office that shows that shows the date of certification.
Got it. Okay. I have another question as well. So, you mentioned that, like, for the confirming, you recommend that the second person looks over the applications, but I didn't realize that some LEAs are required to do it and some aren't. How would you know if you're on that list?
If you're required to do a second review of applications,
Right.
you would be notified. So
Okay.
So pretty much if after an administrative review, if you have, I believe it's over 10% of errors in your uh, certification and benefit issuance section, then you would be required to do a second review of applications. And so you would have received notification as a result of your administrative review.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Question in the chat from Elizabeth Reeves. Can we discuss the requirements process for first and second reviewers?
Okay, so pretty much the requirements and process would be the same for the first and second reviewers. They're really doing the same exact thing. So they're pretty much going through all the steps that we discussed in regards to making sure that the application is completed correctly, completed fully, going through all the steps 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and then essentially making sure that the determination is made and documented. And then they'll just both sign on the second page here in this section. So this would be there's a section for the determining official to sign and date, and then a section for the confirming official to sign and date. So they would do the exact same thing. Essentially, the confirming official is rechecking the application to make sure that it was reviewed correctly. So they are just basically that second set of eyes um, to ensure that nothing was missed, and that the determination was made accurately. So really, they're doing the same thing.
So
And then
maybe
Chris,
go
oh,
ahead.
go ahead. Oh, Chris Hedeker had a question in the chat. Would that also be the case when parents and guardians put 0 for their income off face values?
Yes, that is correct. So if parents put 0 at as their income, we would accept that at face value. And then if they were to be selected for verification, then I believe there is, let's see here. Okay, so if they submitted an application with 0 income, then if they're selected for verification, they would have to submit a brief note explaining how they provide for food, clothing, housing of their household, and when they expect an income. Now, there are circumstances where you may deem that as questionable. So let's say if you know that they like happen to like work at your school or something, and then they put 0 income, then that is an application that you can verify for cause, because it is questionable. So if you know, have a valid reason to question what they're submitting on their application, then you can do what's called a verification for cause, which basically means that you would verify the application and request for them to submit documentation to corroborate what they put on their on the farm application.
Is that done like right? Are you allowed to do that immediately upon receiving it?
Yes.
Okay. Does anyone have best practices for that? Because that just seems kind of awkward and puts us in an interesting situation. I mean, totally understand we should do it, but I was just curious if LEAs have best practices around that, or to use a template or something.
So before we open it up to SFAs to share their best practices, I will say one of the resources that is listed in the that will be listed in the presentation is the eligibility manual. And in the eligibility manual, there is a section based on how you should proceed if you have a application that you have you want to verify for cause. So initially in the application, the manual, there's some information about that, but certainly happy to open it up to any SFAs where they may have had that, because that can be a very touchy situation. Okay, well, hearing none, again, in the eligibility manual, there is some information about that. It actually also lists, you may want to make sure that you have your legal team available to be able to, share any concerns that you may have with your approach. But there is guidance in the eligibility manual.
Okay, and then the last slide we have here is just basically our contact information. So here's where you can find us. Here's our address and email addresses here for myself, Lizette, the compliance manager, and then also our colleague, Ed Kwiatkowski, who has been helping with the chat so generously. Thank you, Ed. And then also, if you want to get social with us, here's our Facebook page, Twitter page, YouTube channel, and our website, ossie.dc.gov, where you can find all of these resources. Okay.
Thank
Were
you
there
for
any
that,
other?
Kendra.
You're welcome. Were there
The
any
only
other
thing that
questions?
the only thing that I will add is that this really is the front end of direct certification and farm application information. The second part of it is verification, as we just talked about briefly here. So while we did not cover verification here, we do anticipate offering a verification training later on in the year. So certainly going to continue the conversation with that. Just wanted to make that plug for that training, so keep an eye out for that email.
Thank you so much. Around that, I just curious. I know there's different ways that you can verify. There's like the standard, and there's like ways that you can, I believe, get exception or get another way approved. Is that done through the Orchard? Is that done through the NSLP application, or is that another process?
So when you mention having the application approved, do you mean if you're using like the standard application for verification, or if you're using there is the standard and then there's like error prone, the different ways that are you speaking to that?
That's exactly. Yep.
Like the different methods.
The different methods, yeah. Like how do
Mhm.
you determine what method you're using?
Sure. So you do have the option to select which one you want. If there are specific SFAs that, well, first and foremost, you do have you do have the option to do that. If you do have error-prone applications, you want to make sure that you have that, take that into consideration as well. There are a few SFAs where they have to provide, they have to select applications based on a method that is identified by OSSI. Not very many schools have that. If we do have that, we will be sure to share that with you ahead of time, if you have a specific requirement. But for the most part, SFAs are able to identify which method they want to select. Okay, well, thank you again. We are at 11 a.m. So again, thank you to everyone for joining us. Part of your summer vacation. I hope you are enjoying the end of the school year and between the beginning of the school year. And again, we will be reaching out with information for verification to continue this conversation. And as Kendra mentioned, please feel free to reach out to your program specialist with any questions that you have from here. So take care and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for your time.